Hello everyone, welcome back to another Beer versus Beer. Today I've got an in-house Weihenstephan battle for you. We've got the Weihenstephaner Hefeweissbier versus the Weihenstephaner Vitus Weizenbock. Obviously they're not exactly the same style. The Weizenbock is intentionally stronger, coming in at 7.7% versus the 5.4% on the regular Hefeweissbier. But I'm doing this mainly because I want to know which one I actually like better. I've had them both separately numerous times, and I love them both. I remember, shout out to Beers with Boydo. Check out that channel if you haven't already. But I know he's talked about the fact that if you have them side by side, he thinks that it's hard to go down. Like when you drink the Vitus and you try to go to the Hefeweissbier, it just tastes too watery. So that makes sense, and it might be true. But I had the regular Hefeweissbier recently. I was like, but it just seems so perfect on its own. It made me wonder, like, I don't know. Maybe the Vitus will come off as just a little too strong compared to the regular Weissbier. So I just wanted to test it out for myself, see where I land. Yeah, go from there. I hope these are chilled enough, but not too much. They've been in the fridge. They were in the fridge for, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 hours or something. And then I put them in the freezer before filming for like, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, just to get them a little bit on ice, like literally physically laying on ice, just to help a little bit. But I do tend to think that these beers do better not ice cold, like they do better when they're a little bit warm. So I'm not too concerned. I'd actually be more concerned if they were overly cold. But I'm not going to pour them completely out right now. I'm going to wait a little bit. I want to get some of the scent. This is surprising me, and maybe it shouldn't, but it looks like the regular Hefeweissbier is a little bit darker, and the Vitus is a little bit lighter. So the Hefeweissbier has a little bit orange in the middle, yellow around the edges, whereas the Vitus is pretty much yellow all the way through. So they probably have, the Vitus looks like it might be a little bit more effervescent, but it could be because I poured it second, so more recently. They both have pretty good large bubbles, actually. I'm kind of surprised. I'm gonna do a little bit of scent before I pour further. It's that Weihenstephaner Hefeweissbier smell. It's just so amazing. The banana, I think, really jumps out. I might redo the Ondex, because I almost bought Ondex today, because I really want to try that again. Because every time I have it, I go, oh, this is really good. I should pit it up against the Weihenstephaner again. But okay, yeah. So pretty much what I expected. The Vitus definitely has a little bit more of a what I often identify as a nail polish scent, but it can either be really good or terrible smelling, and this is a good version of that. Still has that banana aroma, a little bit of that, little bit stronger. The regular Hefeweissbier a little bit, I would say actually almost a little bit fuller though, like a little bit deeper and rounder, whereas the Vitus is a little bit more astringent. So I might actually prefer the regular Hefeweissbier scent, truth be told. I think it's more appealing. I'm going to try to leave a little bit on the bottom before I do the final pours, because I do want to try to get that yeast off the bottom, which sometimes it seems to stick no matter what I do. really do want to try to get as much yeast out at the bottom as I can. But maybe I'll taste them both without that first. See how that goes. All right. To give it a fair shake, I'm going to try the regular Hefeweissbier first. All right. Actually getting a little bit of orange on that. Yeah, they're definitely not super cold. They could probably stand to be a little bit colder. I'm kind of kicking myself for that, but again, I'd rather err on the side of not too cold, because then the flavors get dampened. Good. I had it on its own a couple nights ago, and it was better than right now. It was out of the can, but also I actually think adding the yeast makes a huge difference. So I think that might be what's going on. I think it's better with the yeast added. That's my guess. Wow. Yeah. Definitely got that nail polishy taste, but in a good way. Reminds me a little bit of like a Belgian triple sort of note. It's very tasty. Yeah, I would say both seem to be lacking something. I think it's because the yeast is not in it. But the Vitus being stronger, it overcomes it a little bit more. There's more flavor. Maybe a little bit of pear note in there too. I really want to get that yeast out. I figure out how to do this. Sometimes people just swirl. Sometimes I find that this helps. I really want to get that yeast off the bottom. Oh, I think I did a pretty good job. I don't know if you can see that, but it is more cloudy now. Sometimes you can see little strings or strands of yeast floating in there. Hopefully I got enough of it out. Sometimes it can be tricky. All right, let's see. Yeah, I think I got some here at the top. That's good. Let's try that with the Vitus. Let's see. You guys know if you have your own tricks for how you do this. A little bit more orangey in the middle now, but I'm not really seeing any strands of yeast. Ooh, that's more stuck to the bottom. So the yeast did not come out as well on this. More of it stayed on the bottom, which is disappointing. But you know, it is what it is. Still some. I do see some strands in there now of yeast floating in there, so hopefully that's enough. It does, I think, slightly change the scent as well. Although, you know, after about 15 minutes, your sense of smell tends to dampen. It becomes less sensitive to the same smells if it's been exposed to it for a certain amount of time. Yeah, it's not as sharp now, actually, on the Vitus, which is probably Okay. Okay. Yeah. Trying to see if there's any sort of indication on the bottle about age or best by. I don't see anything. Weird. They have like their own code. It's like 5355 and then some, looks like hours and minutes and seconds. Huh. I have to look that up, see how you're supposed to tell. Anyway, I'm just wondering because both of these were on the shelf warm at the bottle shop, which is not ideal. So Weihenstephaner Hefeweissbier, very smooth, great round, flavors. Vitus obviously more punchy. Being less cold, I think that plays in the Vitus's favor probably a little bit. I'm not sure why, but I just get a sense that, yeah, I don't know. This is hard because I think in some ways it just depends on my mood. Sometimes I want something a little bit stronger, a bit more punchy. Then obviously the Vitus makes sense. Sometimes I want something that's just really flavorful and deep, complex flavors, but not overly astringent or sharp. In that case, regular Hefeweissbier. So really, I think both are just good for different moods. I don't know that one's objectively better than the other. This is hard. Okay, so this might be a little controversial. I think that, well, I might pick one over the other depending on my mood in the moment. If I could only ever have one or the other the rest of my life, it's still hard. I want to say the regular Hefeweissbier because it's never the wrong choice. Whereas the Vitus, I feel because it's a little bit stronger, a little bit more punchy, you kind of have to be wanting that. Whereas, and especially since if you're not having it side by side with the Vitus, the regular Hefeweissbier has plenty of flavor. I don't think I would ever drink this and think it's lacking something. Yeah, if I drink it side by side with the Vitus, I might think, oh wow, it's not as strong. But I'm not going to notice that if I'm just drinking it on its own, which would be like 99% of the time, right? And being lower ABV, obviously a little bit safer to have more than one of. This is really hard because I think I'm also basing this a little bit more on when I had it out of the can a few days ago. And this Vitus is so good. I mean, it really is. Yeah, the banana, the clove, a little bit of pear maybe. That triple-esque nail polishy sort of accent is actually really pleasant. I will say I get more excited about buying Vitus when I go to the store and I'm picking out beers. I see Vitus and it's like, yes, I really want that. So there's a little bit more of an exciting aspect to the Vitus that you don't get just from the regular Hefeweissbier. Yeah, I don't know. Can I call this a tie? Is that allowed? I guess I make up the rules. I feel like that's cheating. You would think this would be much easier. So I think Boido is right to an extent. When you have them side by side, the Vitus it's a little bit more notable, but I love strong beers. I love Doppelbocks. That's one reason I love Weizenbocks is because they're like, I get a Doppelbock and a Weissbier at the same time, basically, which is like perfect for me. This is hard. I would say the sample I had of the Hefeweissbier a few days ago, from memory, is better than both of these. So that's sort of creating a problem for me. In the moment, not being cooled probably enough, which is my fault, because they also sat a little bit while I was setting up, which probably negated the entire freezer exercise. The Vitus is probably a little bit better overall, but there's still something about the smoothness of the Hefeweissbier that I really appreciate. So, as much as I hate to do this, in one respect, I think I'm going to give it to the original. I think the Vitus is a fantastic beer that adds character and excitement and a change from the ordinary. But I think as a standard go-to beer, the regular Hefeweissbier is the way to go on a more regular basis. And the Vitus is sort of like a special occasion sort of thing. If you want to have one beer, Vitus might be the way to go. But for everyday drinkability and enjoyment, I think the original is the choice. So that's my decision. What do you think? Let me know.